And so legal challenges are coming to net neutrality, as we all expected, because now it's being filed with the Federal Register. And so a lot of people are very, very mad that net neutrality passed in the manner in which it did. Some people are very happy that net neutrality passed. I'm not quite neutral on net neutrality. I don't think that it's a good idea. And there's many different reasons why. No, it's not because I think that the internet should be led by corporations. The internet is essentially owned by the users and people who own the different domains, not the governments. But there's a lot of different reasons why net neutrality is not a particularly good idea. One of the main ones that I'm most interested in is that it basically is the government laying claim to the internet, claiming they have jurisdiction over the internet when there's no way they could possibly claim that with any sort of validity. Well, on Wednesday afternoon, according to TechCrunch, the Federal Communications Commission filed its net neutrality order to the Federal Register. An FCC official confirmed to TechCrunch. And once published by the Register, the filing opens the gates to an inevitable outpouring of legal challenges from net neutrality's opponents. Now, I am. Let's throw something out there real quick. I'm not a Republican by any means. I'm not a Democrat by any means. I don't like either party. I think they're both detrimental to the health of the country. Neither of them really do any good at all. They're just facades for larger ideas. But I have to hand it to the Republicans, and this is the only time I'll do this. I kind of have to hand it to the Republicans. Their opposition for net neutrality, while not very well founded, at least it was there. You know, like I didn't like net neutrality for very different reasons than the Republicans didn't like net neutrality, but at least the opposition was there, I guess. The FCC's filing comes a week and a half after the agency was slammed with the first lawsuits attempting to block the new rules. An FCC official said that the lawsuits from both the United States Telecom Association and the Alamo Broadband, which were filed just 12 days after the rules were published, jumped the gun and may be dismissed on the grounds that they were filed too early. In the coming days, when the filing is formally published by the Federal Register, the providers will be on solid legal footing to submit such challenges. The rules go into effect 60 days after they are published by the Federal Register. Now, the complaint is probably going to be that net neutrality is unconstitutional. There could be complaints that net neutrality is just a breach of power on the side of the feds, where they're entering a jurisdiction where they really have no right to. There's a lot of different arguments which could be made. I'm not sure what the telecoms are going to go for. I'm not sure what I would go for, actually. I would go on the grounds that the federal government has no jurisdiction over the internet. That would be my argument. And because the internet is a nationless entity, the federal government really can't lay claim to it. The internet is anarchy, and trying to regulate anarchy just doesn't work, because then it ceases to be what it is. Well, before the FCC even released its net neutrality order, the agency's chairman, Tom Wheeler, anticipated an influx of legal challenges to the new rules. He famously said the big dogs are going to sue regardless of what comes out. But the FCC maintains that the rules were developed with potential challenges in mind. And as recently as last week, Tom Wheeler, the FCC chairman, said that the rules will withstand challenges in court. And he seems very confident of that. So maybe there's something about net neutrality that I don't know, and that the rest of us don't know, because after all, we don't get to read it until it passes and all that. So it's hard to tell exactly what's going on with why he's so confident that it's not going to be struck down. In addition to private suits, chairman is defending the rules to Congress, where Republicans have alleged that Obama's administration has exerted influence over the independent agency's rulemaking. The chairman recently completed a circuit of congressional hearings, testifying before 5 committees and subcommittees over the course of 2 weeks. So it's not really easy to tell what exactly is going on in the FCC right now. Like, why did they pass net neutrality? Yeah, there were some calls for net neutrality, but why is there such a push now for net neutrality now of all times, and all these different weird anomalies that are going on with net neutrality? And we've covered net neutrality rather extensively just in the past, 2-3 months. But it's something that bears repeating, I suppose, that this is not going to help us as much as they want you to think that it will. You see, net neutrality on its face seems like a good idea. And a lot of people, I think, have been sort of duped by this new regulation, where they think, well, this is good because this protects the consumer. Not so much, actually. Now, I'm not going to say that the telecom situation is perfect. It's really not. We have huge problems with how internet companies and ISPs are running themselves, and how it's we have these problems with people who they can't get service, and people who only have one option in getting service, and people who have to go to municipalities, and telecoms who are getting in bed with municipalities, and all sorts of different things. So lots of different problems have arisen with telecoms. I'm not saying the telecom system is perfect like it is, but I don't think that the solution is government stepping in and saying we can fix it, because I don't know of anything government's ever fixed. If you think about it, what's one thing the government has ever actually fixed? Okay, let's think about it. The healthcare situation in the United States is horrible. It's deplorable, and it has been for forever. So, what's our solution? Well, we'll bring in the government to fix it. Oh, that didn't work. Okay, well, it's because the Republicans screwed it up. So we'll blame Republicans for that, whatever. Or we'll blame Democrats for not writing the law right, or something like that. I don't care. I don't like party politics. So, okay, let's fix, let's have some common sense gun regulation. Oh, wait, this is just stupid gun laws that don't make any sense, and they ban things that were totally harmless, and well, not harmless, but were just regular old guns that some of them are even bolt actions, but if they have a bayonet on them, then they can't be legal in the state of New York, and all sorts of ridiculous things. If government steps into anything, they're going to ruin it. That's just how it is. That's just the nature of it. And that's not just the United States government or the Canadian government or the Mexican government or whatever. No, it's just government. If government steps in to talk about something, to pass legislation about something, it's going to get screwed up. That's just how it is. That's always how it is. That's always how it's going to be. And that's always how it has been. There's just no way around it, unfortunately. I don't want it to be that way. I wish we could have some sort of benevolent agency which could step in and fix everything for us, but that's not going to happen. That's an unrealistic expectation. It's something which could never, ever happen. There's no way there could ever be some sort of benevolent agency to step in and solve all of our problems for us. That's simply not possible. It would have to be run by robots who were not influenced by any sort of outside agencies, and were totally autonomous and went based on studies and all sorts of different things. And it's just, it wouldn't happen. There's no way. So that's the main problem, is that governments ruin everything. Not just the United States government, although the United States government does not fix much of anything ever, but it's all governments. They just ruin everything. That's how it is. Governments are bad most of the time. Governments are just bad. They're a bad idea. It's a government is basically taking the place of self-governance, where instead of saying, well, I can handle myself and I think other people can too, instead let's establish this agency that'll handle everything for us, and we'll just go from there and hope everything goes okay. And it's not going to. It's never going to. Well, think about it. Think about how the public school system is right now. Kids are not being educated very well at all. I mean, I can't do math. I'm horrible at math, but I'm capable of doing basic math skills and that sort of thing. I can get by, but I'm horrible at algebra, and I'm bad at a lot of other things in terms of math. I can do long division. I can use a calculator, all that sort of thing. I can operate in the modern world, is what I'm saying. But that's not nearly so important to me as learning history, learning how to spell, learning how to write, all sorts of other skills, vocational skills, people skills, how to do your textbooks, not textbooks, your checkbooks. All these different things are extremely important. However, the kids aren't really being taught that in the public schooling system. They're just not, because we're trying to standardize something which can't be standardized, which is kids. You can't standardize kids. Kids are all different. I was really different as a kid, and so you can't standardize a child. It's like, we want this child to fit into this framework that we've established and have determined is the correct framework which every child should fit into. You can't standardize kids. Think about how it used to be. Okay, let's think about like Little House on the Prairie. Let's go way back, where you had the town, which by social contract, right, they would all get together and shake hands and say, yeah, we need a teacher. They'd hire a teacher who was a general purpose teacher who would teach their kids in the schoolhouse, and there'd be different times for classes for the different age groups. Guess what? It worked. It worked just fine. You had kids who were very well educated. You had kids who were doing algebra in fifth grade. It was crazy. So that system does work, and that's actually an anarchist system, because there's no government in between the parents and the teacher. The parents can address the teacher directly if they have a problem. Parents can fire the teacher and hire a new one if they want to. And the teacher is relatively well paid, because all the teachers pay at a rate. So that's a perfect system, actually. Now, not perfect, but that's a very well working system. And that's actually an anarchist system that works far, far better than any public schooling system ever could. because public schooling systems are standardized, and standardization usually leads to a lot of problems when we're talking about the human element, because humans cannot be standardized. It does not work. So the moral of the story is, don't let government into any sort of business, because they'll always ruin it. And that's just always how it is. Well, Comcast is not my favorite company. I'll say that outright. I really am not a huge fan of Comcast. And they're doing something which surprised me, actually. They're doing something that is a positive move. I know, shocking, right? But Comcast is actually trying to beat Google Fiber with 2 gigabit per second internet service. Now, that means now that Chattanooga has been kicked off of the throne of being one of the fastest cities in the world, because now there's a city which is doubly fast at 2 gigabits per second. Well, Comcast may be evil incarnate in some ways, according to Extreme Tech, but it's rolling out some really, really fast internet hardware. Today, the company announced that they're going to have 2.5 gigabits per second fiber service available to 1.5 million Atlanta customers beginning this month. Yeah, this month. It's called Gigabit Pro. Comcast claims that it's the fastest available in the country for home users. It's going to deliver 2 gigabits per second down and up. That puts it ahead of Google's own 1 gigabits per second symmetrical fiber service, or even AT&T's in Kansas City. That's if you let them spy on you for the privilege of paying them for their own product. Google plans to roll out its own service up to 34 new cities in 2015, although we're still waiting for somebody to launch gigabit fiber in big ones like San Francisco, NYC, Seattle, and Boston. But that's probably not going to happen anytime soon, because then you have to negotiate with those municipalities, and good luck with that. So do you think we'll be seeing Google Fiber here in Chattanooga by next year? I think it's possible, actually. I don't know. What do you think? You can tweet us on Twitter. Send us a tweet on the tweeter. Go go to Twitter and search for Hot News Talk Radio. What do you think? Do you think there could be actually some gigabit Google Fiber here in Chattanooga? In fact, call in. Why not? Call in. That's 423-800-8949. If you think there's going to be Google Fiber in Chattanooga. Do you think Google Fiber in Chattanooga would be a good idea, or should we just stick with EPB as our present service, which I wouldn't have a huge problem with either? 423-800-8949 is the number to call in. That's 423-800-8949. So Gigabit Pro is a professional-grade residential fiber-to-the-home solution that leverages our fiber network to deliver 2 gigabits upload and download speeds. They say, we spent a decade building national fiber backbone across 145,000 routes of fiber in advance of the launch, the company wrote. So it adds that the new service will require professional installation, and that the company plans to reach 18 million homes by the end of the year. That's not a huge time window either to reach, how many did they say, a million? 18 million homes by the end of the year. They don't have a whole lot of time to pull that off. So it's good to see that the telecoms are competing. I kind of knew that this would happen. I had a bit of a not a hankering, but an inkling, I guess, that this would happen with Google Fiber launching. You see, when a service launches and it's revolutionary and it's better than everybody else, then the other telecoms are going to have to step in to compete. Now, this is without any sort of government bolstering, keep in mind. But let's say, like we had here, Google Fiber launches gigabit per second internet service, and it's actually really dang affordable. It's like $50 a month. And I think it comes with TV and stuff. I don't know. I'm not going to advertise for Google. But then they launch this and everybody's happy about it. Everybody loves it. Google Fiber is the stuff now. Everybody wants it. Well, that means that this makes the other companies look pretty bad, right? Comcast looks bad now because they can't offer gigabits per second. So that means they must compete instead of sitting down and saying, well, I guess Google Fiber is going to take over. Comcast, using their using its extensive influence and extensive resources, stepped in and said, well, you know, Comcast has a lot of money. Comcast has a lot of influence. Comcast has some pull in municipalities. Comcast, it has decided, is going to launch 2 gigabit per second internet speeds. And we'll just see how you like that, Google. So that's what's happening now in Atlanta. So competition is happening in Atlanta. Competition is good. That's I cannot stress enough how good competition is, because this means that the consumer now has a choice. The consumer can now pick out which service he's going to use. It's just better in the long run if you have competition. You always need competition. Well, Gigabit Pro is going to offer 2 gigabits per second to quite a few people. In fact, 18 million people, they're hoping. So they say, our approach is to offer the most comprehensive rollout of multi-gigabit service to the most homes as quickly as possible, not just to certain neighborhoods, said Doug Guthrie. He's a senior vice president of Comcast Cable's South region. In a separate statement, it's a clear shot at Google's slow rollout, because Google did take a long time to get Google Fiber out there. Now, am I anti-Google? No, not by any means. Am I anti-Comcast? I wouldn't say so. I'm critical of Comcast. I'll say that. But I'm critical of any company. There are a lot of things Google does that I'm not really proud of either. So I don't really vouch for any one of the companies. I was really stoked to find out that Google Fiber was coming to the South. Not going to lie, I was very excited about that. I hope that Google Fiber comes to Chattanooga or by extension Ringgold quickly, because I don't live in Tennessee. I actually live just on the Georgia border. So, and I'm happy. I like Georgia a lot, so I'm cool with that. But I really hope that we can get gigabit service down in Georgia too, because that'd be awesome. Can you imagine if like Fort Oglethorpe got gigabit internet service? Like, how crazy would that be? Fort Oglethorpe gets gigabit internet. I could see Dalton actually getting gigabit internet service, because Dalton has a big carpet industry. They probably do need the bandwidth. That would be really funny though if Dalton got it ahead of Chattanooga. That just can you imagine that? The uproar there would be. Well, the new offering is a big jump from its existing 505 megabits per second home service, which costs, get this, $309 a month. $399 a month, so almost $400. It's doubtful 2 gigabits per second is going to be cheap either. So at that rate, 2 gigabits per second is going to have to be well into the thousands of dollars. It's also there are also plans for a 1 gigabit per second fiber service in the works that could put it into more in line with Google Fiber's $70 a month price point. Gigabit Pro isn't the only way we plan to bring gigabit speeds to customers' homes, Comcast said. We are currently testing DOCSIS 3.1, a scalable national next generation 1 gigabit per second technology solution, and we hope to be rolling out DOCSIS 3.1 in early 2016. So $70 per month for Google Fiber's 1 gigabit per second service. So scale that up to 2. 70 times 2 would be 140. So $140 a month for this service for 2 gigabits per second. That's not horrible, actually. So considering the speeds we're talking about, $140 a month. If you're a company, if you own a company, you can probably afford that. So that's not that bad, actually. $140 a month. I don't know. I might have to look into that. I'm kind of curious now if this service is actually worth it for one, and if the service is going to be that expensive for another, because there's no telling really. Who knows, man? So anyway, that's Google and Comcast are at neck and neck, and Comcast is actually a little bit faster than Google is now, which is crazy because you never would expect that. Well, there was a $3.85 latte that was paid for with a $100 bill, which led to a counterfeit kingpin's downfall, which shows you never spend big bills if you're in a counterfeiting operation. Always break it down into smaller bits of cash. But 4 men were indicted on Wednesday on federal charges as part of an international online conspiracy to make and distribute high-quality counterfeits of over $1.4 million sold via Tor-enabled dark web sites. The new criminal charges expand on a previous case where those filed back in December of 2014 against Ryan Andrew Gustafson, a man who went by the online moniker of Jack Farrell and Wiley Clock, or Willie Clock, I should say. He's also named as one of the 4 defendants, according to court records. Gustafson was previously positively identified via facial recognition against his Texas driver's license. So it's one little slip up that'll get you, though. It's always that one little slip up that gets people, where they have a huge counterfeiting operation. It seems like nobody's ever going to catch him. The FBI's bugged his car, but they can never quite nab him. And then you do something stupid like spend $100 to buy a cup of coffee that costs $3.85, and there you go. I'm an advocate for a cash economy, for certain, but don't spend $100 if you're only buying a coffee that's $3.85. Break it down into smaller bills. That's my tip for all of you. For all you money counterfeiters out there, don't give yourself away by spending $100 on coffee. I've actually done it. Funny joke. Funny story. I actually have spent $100 one time because it was all I had. Not to say that I'm rich or something, is because I'd spent all my other money and I had $100 from an ATM. So I went to buy coffee and I was like, all I have is this $100 bill. I'm sorry. And they actually broke it down for me, and they had to call the manager. It's like, I'm sorry, it's all I've got. I got no money in the bank. Sorry. I felt really bad spending $100 at Starbucks to buy a $10 cup of coffee, because Starbucks coffee is crazy expensive. Who would spend $10 on coffee anyway? I guess I just felt rich at that point in time. But anyway, this is Digital Drive, the show we talk about technology and more. Nuganomics.com and David Toulis is actually coming up in about 30 minutes. The show where he talks about local economy and free markets. He's the great free market defender here in the Chattanooga area, in the Tennessee Valley. That's David Toulis of Nuganomics.com. We have Imus in the morning, Laura Ingram, all that great programming. On Tuesdays, we have Real Estate University. Sean Hannity's coming up in about 2 hours or so. Nuganomics.com is his website, and go to hotnewstalkradio.com to listen to us live on the web.
This is a mob mode. This is the mob mode. What kind of fool do you think I am? You think I know nothing of my...
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Hi, this is your computer speaking. I don't feel so well. It's like I've come down with a bug, and I'm getting slower.
Affordable Computers. We fix sick computers. Your hometown guys at Affordable Computers will repair your PC in half the time of the big boys at an affordable price. No tricks, no gimmicks, no computer speak technobabble. Just good, quick, and courteous affordable service and repairs. Want to affordably supercharge your PC? Affordable Computers on Highway 58. Affordable Computers hand builds all desktops in-house. If you're looking for a better-than-new refurb laptop, $150 will get you a Dell or another name brand at Affordable Computers. Affordable Computers, Highway 58, between Arby's and Taco Bell. Also Fort O, Battlefield Parkway, near Holcomb's. Affordable Computers, we service what we sell. Call 499-1975. That's 499-1975.
Wow, this is amazing. I'm feeling great. Supercharged.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk Radio, 910, 1190, and 1240 AM.
You love your hometown. Are you interested in free markets, in local economy? Do you hope that Chattanooga can survive the next meltdown, the next chain of disasters in the national economy? What's the best way to live out the ideals of self-government and self-determination? Join me, David Toulis, weekdays 1 to 3.
Hot News Talk 1240.
Love your neighbor, buy local.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240. Hot News Talk 1240.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
Hot News Talk 1240.
So if you're running a large money counterfeiting operation, do try not to, please try not to give yourself away by spending huge amounts of money on very small items, because that's a great way to give yourself away and ruin your whole money counterfeiting operation. Now, why am I giving tips to money counterfeiters? Well, one, because there aren't a whole lot of them out there to listen anyway, and two, because it's pretty funny when you think about it. How we have this system of money that's not really worth much of anything, and yet people are still trying to counterfeit it, pretending that it's worth something. You know, this whole scheme that we have with money where we're like, ooh, you know, US dollar is worth something. Please believe me. Well, Arsenic has a story about how a $3.85 latte paid for with a fake $100 bill led to a counterfeit kingpin's downfall. So 4 men have been indicted on Wednesday on federal charges as part of an international online conspiracy to make and distribute high-quality, so-called counterfeits of over $1.4 million sold via Tor-enabled dark websites. The new criminal charges expand on a previous case filed back in December 2014 against Ryan Andrew Gustafson.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. The president of Iran addressing his nation one day after reaching an understanding with 6 world powers over his country's nuclear program. President Hassan Rouhani pledging his nation will abide by its commitments in the nuclear agreement, which was blasted by Israel. When Congress returns,
it will likely consider a bill that would give Congress the authority to review and reject any agreement with Iran. The president has warned Congress against killing this agreement. Now the White House lobbying begins.
Fox Business Network's Rich Edson. The March jobs report with just 126,000 jobs added, ending 12 months of straight 200,000 plus gains.
The Labor Department also revised January and February jobs numbers downward, meaning growth was weaker at the beginning of the year than first thought.
Fox Radio's Rachel Sutherland. And a former Marine ordered to trial in the killing of the pregnant wife of another Marine in California. Fox News. We report, you decide.
So 4 men have been indicted on Wednesday on federal charges as part of an international online conspiracy to make and distribute high-quality, so-called counterfeits of over $1.4 million sold via Tor-enabled dark websites. So I don't actually care if you counterfeit money. It doesn't really make any difference to me because there's already so much counterfeit money being put around. It's called Federal Reserve notes. They're not worth anything and they're not worth your time. But that actually is counterfeit money that we have in our wallets. Always have counterfeit money in our wallets. That's just how it is. But new criminal charges are expanding on a previous case filed back in December 2014 against Ryan Andrew Gustafson, a man who went by different online monikers. And according to court records, Gustafson was previously positively identified. I like that. Previously positively identified via facial recognition against his Texas driver's license. Well, that's another thing. If you're going to be a money counterfeiter, at least have a fake ID. I mean, come on, dude. How can you be so inept? Well, prosecutors say the 27-year-old is an American living in Kampala in Uganda. Not my place of choice to hang out. He is currently on trial in the East African nation on counterfeiting charges. The United States does not have an extradition treaty on or a mutual legal assistance treaty, or MLAT, with Uganda, so his return home is not a sure thing. So the people of Uganda don't actually have to send him back to the States for trial because, again, we don't have a treaty with Uganda. Much like we don't have a treaty with Uruguay, I believe, and a few other Latin American countries and quite a few African countries such as Uganda, we don't have an extradition treaty, which means that if, say, somebody commits a crime in the United States and then flees to Uganda, we can't necessarily just grab him. You know, the people of Uganda, the government of Uganda won't just extradite him if you say pretty please, because we don't have any treaty stating that they must. Well, if he gets convicted and then goes to prison, that's fine with us, says David J. Hickton of the United States Attorney for the Western District of Pennsylvania. He says, we put his case on hold and proceed with the rest of the case. He's leading the case. That's what he told ours on Thursday. Prosecutors also named 3 other men as co-defendants, an 18-year-old Las Vegas man named Zachary Ruiz, who went by the online name Mr. Mouse. It's really weird to think of somebody involved in a huge counterfeiting operation being younger than me. That's just weird. And there's also Michael Lynn of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, and Jeremy Miller of Seattle. And they've all been summoned to an upcoming court hearing in Pittsburgh. And if they don't appear, arrest warrants will be issued, Hickton added. So ours conducted an encrypted chat with Clock, it was presumably under the name of Gustafson, back in 2014. Around the same time, his associate named Mr. Mouse began advertising Disney dollars, super notes, not only on various dark websites, but also more brazenly on Reddit, which soon pulled the subreddit. Mr. Mouse acted as Clock's authorized salesman. So there's a whole industry behind counterfeited money. Maybe some people don't know that, but there really is this whole industry behind counterfeiting money. It's not hard to do necessarily. I mean, US dollars have to be printed somewhere. So if you can get your hands on scans of those plates, then you're basically golden, and then go through the whole process of spending it and everything. Keep in mind, too, that if you have these plates and everything, you don't necessarily have to assume that those bills are going to go into a bank, because if you spend them, say, at a small business, then the small businessman isn't going to look at your $100 bill and say, I don't know if that's right or not. Chances are he's just going to take it and spend it elsewhere. So this $100 bill may never actually see a bank. That's the weird thing. And that's sort of what this counterfeiting operation is riding on, is that this money never actually sees a bank. But anyway, it's a very complicated thing. But counterfeiting money is a whole giant industry that's much larger than you may think. So anyway, the Ninth Circuit rules that Netflix is not subject to disability laws. So here in the States, we have disability laws, which means there has to be some form of accessibility for people who are disabled to access certain businesses. It's the Americans with Disabilities Act, and there's a few other acts which claim that if you own a business, then it must be accessible to those who are disabled in certain qualified or not qualified, but certain registered and approved facilities for disabled people. And it's like if you come to the States and you see the bathroom stalls, and there's the larger one for people who are in wheelchairs. That's part of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Well, the Ninth Circuit rules that Netflix isn't subject to any sort of disability law. So a federal appeals court has ruled yesterday that the Americans with Disabilities Act does not apply to Netflix since the online video provider is not connected to any actual physical place. I mean, you can't say that, oh yeah, that's Netflix over there. It doesn't really work that way. Netflix is a website. It's netflix.com. There's no physical entity, so there's nowhere for there to be any facilities for people who are disabled or unable or handicapped, or I'm not sure what the proper politically correct word is for it, but you know what I'm talking about. Well, Donald Cullen sued Netflix back in March of 2011, attempting to kick off a class action suit on behalf of disabled people who didn't have full use of the videos because they aren't all captioned. So if you are hearing impaired, then you probably have subtitles on your movies. If not, then you're watching your films with no sort of dialogue whatsoever. And that's actually a very interesting way of watching a film. And maybe I'll have to try that sometime. But regardless, say you're hearing impaired and you're totally deaf as opposed to just hard of hearing. Closed captions are kind of an asset to you because you need those to watch these movies. But I don't need to tell you that. Well, some people are saying that because Netflix doesn't offer closed captioning on all of their movies, that they are in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. Well, a district court judge threw out the lawsuit in 2013, and yesterday's ruling by the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit upholds that decision. The decision is unpublished, meaning it isn't available, or rather isn't intended to be used as a precedent in other cases. However, it certainly doesn't bode well for any plaintiff thinking about filing a similar case in the Ninth Circuit, which covers most of the western United States. So west of the Mason-Dixon line, basically, or not the Mason-Dixon line, the west of the Rockies is what I mean. At least one other court has come out the other way on this issue. 3 months after Cullen filed suit, the National Association for the Deaf, or NAD, filed an Americans with Disabilities Act lawsuit against Netflix in Massachusetts over the same issue. In that case, the judge found that Netflix was a place of public accommodation and would have to face the lawsuit against disability rights groups. So I'm not sure how you can figure that, where deaf people are certainly, it's nice that people who are deaf can watch movies with what's the word, with subtitles and all that sort of thing, with closed captioning. That's cool and that's great. But is Netflix really liable that because they aren't providing closed captions on every single one of their movies? It's not even their movies anyway. I don't think the closed captions are even provided by Netflix. I'm pretty sure they're provided by the video distribution company, or well, the one other than Netflix, as in the contractor. So like Warner Brothers or whatever the production company may be, MGM, United Artists, which is MGM, all sorts of other companies like that. You'd think they would be the ones responsible for the closed captioning, but apparently the National Association for the Deaf does not see it that way. Well, after the company lost the initial motion, Netflix settled the case with the NAD, agreeing to pay $750,000 in legal fees and caption all of its videos by the year 2014, which I'm pretty sure they have, because you can watch videos with captions no problem. And I've not come across one that doesn't have captions, but I tend to not use them anyway because while I don't have the best hearing ever, I can hear them just fine. While online captioning may be a done deal for Netflix, the NAD has continued to litigate the matter. In February, they sued Harvard and MIT over their free online course offering, saying the lack of captions constitutes an ADA violation. So it seems like the NAD, now I don't want to say too much, but it seems like the NAD might be pushing it just a little bit by trying to find any sort of infraction ever and then suing over it to make money. That's a good way to make money, but it's not exactly the most ethical way to make money. Despite significant wins by the NAD and other disabled advocates, yesterday's decision in Cullen v. Netflix shows that judges are far from unanimous in believing that the ADA can be wielded as a tool to regulate the internet. Because really, why does the internet need to fall under Americans with Disabilities Act rules anyway? Because there's no general term to describe who owns the internet anyway, other than just users. It's just users own the internet. Users and companies own the internet, not governments. Well, like all mobile wallets preceding it, Apple Pay is having some problems. The problem is with retailers. You see, 47% of Apple Pay users are denied by a participating merchant, a study says. Now, Apple Pay, you may not be familiar with it. Apple Pay is a system through which you use your cell phone, your iPhone, of course, to pay for stuff with the NFC chip, which is embedded in the iPhone. And it basically takes the place of the NFC chip or RFID chip, which is inside your I lost it. Your credit card. There you go. And you wave it, the wave to pay thing that MasterCard did for a while. Same thing. It's actually exactly the same thing, except the chip is embedded in your phone. So you wave your phone in front of the register to pay, and there you go. You've paid. Well, unfortunately, some places are just not accepting it. Now, Whole Foods Whole Foods Market is one place that is supposed to be accepting it like all the time. There are a few other retailers. I think Target is one which is pledged to accept Apple Pay, but for some odd reason, not everybody can use it. So a recent study published by market research company Phoenix Marketing International found that 47% of all Apple Pay users shopping in a participating store were not able to use Apple Pay to complete a transaction at least once. So at least once is not really a big deal considering how much people use their credit cards, but still at least once seems like it's a bit too much already. Well, the finding reflects one of the biggest stumbling blocks that Apple Pay and its competitors face in trying to get people to adopt mobile payments, which is the fact that no payment platform can control the experience a customer has when they walk into a brick and mortar store. Phoenix surveyed 3,000 people about their smartphone shopping habits. 523 of those were iPhone 6 users, and currently only one model on which Apple Pay works. So if you have an iPhone, you must have the iPhone 6 in order to use Apple Pay, because otherwise it's not going to work because those phones don't have the NFC chip embedded. Well, 350 of those were Apple Pay adopters, linking the card to their service, and 302 had made a purchase at least once in the 4 months since Apple Pay was introduced in late October. So despite how cool Apple Pay seems, it's not being adopted as widely as you might expect. It seems like retailers would be jumping on this like hotcakes because it's this cool new idea where you can buy things with your phone. Whoa, you can buy things with your phone, and you got all the kids jumping on that because it sounds really cool. And it is really cool, but it's not necessarily the most convenient way to go about things, oddly enough. It seems like it's just easier to whip out your credit card and pay for things. Well, not your credit card, but your debit card to pay for things. So I don't know. It's just kind of weird. Well, the internet doesn't make you smarter, believe it or not. Now, it may increase your knowledge, perhaps, but the internet doesn't really raise your IQ levels. That's something that has to be understood. Now, you're probably like me. In fact, science states that you are probably like me. I have a very average intelligence of 108, I believe, which is very, very average. In fact, that's like just average. I'm not incredibly intelligent. I'm not stupid either. I'm just average. Now, I have certain knowledge which is applicable to certain subjects, which is more than what some people may have, which may lead people to believe that some people are smarter than others when in fact it's just applied knowledge. But anyway, the internet does not make you smarter. You only think that it does. So if you've ever lived with roommates, chances are you share a transactive memory system with them. One person might have remembered to pay the bills while another knew the contact details of the plumber. It's common to find social systems that share information needed by a group across all the members of that group, thus creating a large superintelligence which can then take over the world with flames and the shared collective knowledge of how to build nuclear weapons. Well, transactive memory systems are a common feature of human social groups, but they can be technological too. And in the case of the internet, relationship can be a pretty powerful one. So on the internet, it's easy to have relationships with people. You can chat online, you can use Skype, you can use WhatsApp, you can use Google+. There's all sorts of different ways to keep in contact with people, even in other countries. It's possible. And in fact, I do it all the time. So it's not hard to have that sort of shared collective knowledge where you, say, are friends with a bunch of people on a forum, and between the group of you, you know a lot. You know a lot. You're probably a genius. Collectively, you are a genius, which is weird to say. But on your own, you're just average, because most people are just average. And that's fine, because what can you do than be average, really, in terms of your IQ? And I don't really attribute much to IQs anyway, but most of those, there are already indications that we treat the internet kind of like a transactive memory partner. So we are actually treating the internet as though it is an individual which we're sharing information with, which is a very weird concept. Well, their research, which has been published this week in the Journal of Experimental Psychology, found that after using a search engine, people were more confident in their ability to explain an unrelated topic. To explore the effect, they conducted 9 separate experiments, each using 131 and 280 participants from Amazon's Mechanical Turk, whichever that is. In the first set of experiments, participants were presented with a series of questions regarding, requiring explanations, such as why are there time zones? In the induction phase, the test group was asked to search the internet for answers and then rate how well they felt they were able to explain the answers. The control group was presented with the same questions, but asked not to use the internet before rating their explanations. Unsurprisingly, the internet group was more confident in their abilities to explain the answer. Well, of course, there are time zones because of the rotation of the Earth and the sun's position relating to the Earth. So 12 o'clock noon here is definitely not going to be the same as 12 o'clock noon in China, because it's not at all the same. So you have to go based on the position of the sun, the rotation of the Earth, and all sorts of different stuff that requires there to be time zones. It's pretty simple, actually, if you put your head to it, but I don't have time for that. I don't have time to be smart. Well, for some odd reason, people tend to think that they are way smarter than perhaps they actually are when they're able to use the internet to search for things. It's kind of funny, actually. Well, 3 patients are fighting cancer with genetically tailored vaccines. So you don't normally think of vaccines as being able to treat cancer. Now, you think of maybe a series of injections, a series of pills, chemotherapy, maybe radiation therapy, of course, and maybe gene therapy as well with stem cell treatments, but you don't usually think of a vaccine as being able to treat cancer by any way. Well, 3 patients are now fighting cancer with a genetically tailored vaccine. So researchers are making progress towards a new way to fight cancer, according to The Verge, combining genetic sequencing with the power of vaccines. Genetically tailored vaccines were used to provoke an immune response in 3 patients with an advanced form of skin cancer, according to a study published in Science Today. The study is actually pretty significant because it's the first record of a vaccine causing the production of cancer-fighting cells that target specific proteins on the surface of cancer cells in humans. Because keep in mind, cancer cells are just that, cells. So if you can find a way to kill those cells and just those cells, you've essentially cured the person of cancer. So if you can somehow manage to do that, then you've basically found a way to cure cancer. Now, there's a lot more complicated stuff to go around. It's not nearly as simple as just doing that, but that's the gist of it, is if you can find a way to kill those cancer cells, then you've done it. You've cured cancer. Unfortunately, there's lots of different cancers which react in many different ways, so it's not quite as simple as that across the board. Well, the vaccine approach seeks to remind the patient's immune system that mutated cancer proteins aren't a part of their own bodies in a way that will permit the body to fend off the newly emerged cancer, explained Elaine Martis, who's co-author of the study and a molecular biologist at Washington University, during a press briefing today. In the study, the researchers sequenced the genomes of tumors belonging to 3 patients with stage 3 melanoma, as well as the patient's own genomes. They use those sequenced genomes to identify neoantigens, which are proteins located on the surface of cancer cells that are uniquely expressed by each patient's melanoma tumor. And this was a challenge, says study co-author and oncologist Beatrice Carreno, because a patient with melanoma can have hundreds of neoantigens on his or her tumor. So researchers spent a lot of time trying to figure out which proteins were likely to elicit a strong immune response against the tumor. So it's not a perfect treatment by any means, but it is a step in the right direction, because cancer is something which can affect basically anybody, except that group of people in, I believe, South America who for some reason just don't get cancer. And I think they also have dwarfism, interestingly enough. But yeah. So there is actually a specific group of people who just will not get cancer, and we've been using them as research models for how to cure cancer. But anyway, so cancer is something that could potentially affect just about anybody. Most people know somebody who has had it or does have it. So it's extremely important to a lot of people to solve this problem, which is cancer. So any step forward in researching and curing it is a positive move, in my view. So think about this. Maybe you've played the video game Portal, right? I love that game. It's such a fun game. It really challenges the brain, well, sometimes, and it's just a fun little mind game. I love it. Well, what if we had those boots like Chell has in the game? Remember what the boots that she has are, where she can fall from any distance, and it has like these shock absorbers in these boots that she wears, so if she lands hard, then it's not going to harm her? Well, what if we had something a little bit similar to that, although not quite? Well, an unpowered ankle exoskeleton is taking a load off of calf muscles to improve walking efficiency. Now, this is great news for me because I'm terrible at walking. I actually have to use crutches to stand, actually, because I sit so much that my legs are so weak that I can't even stand. That's a joke. But we may have started off in the water, according to the evolution theory, but humans have become quite good at walking in recent years, although also they've become pretty bad at walking in recent years. The result of 8 years of work begun by Steve Collins and Greg Sawicki, when they were graduate students together at the University of Michigan in 2007, and their device has been shown to reduce metabolic cost of walking by around 7%. Now, if you're walking for exercise, this is not a good thing because you need to stress your metabolism in order to lose weight. But if you don't want to spend or exert much effort in the act of walking, then this is the perfect device for you. So it reduces the metabolic cost of walking by 7%. The researchers claim that this is roughly equivalent to taking off 10 pounds, and that equates to the same savings provided by electrically powered exoskeletons. So this particular exoskeleton is without any form of electronics. So there's no battery pack, there's no servos, there's no nothing. It's just straight kinetics. So the researchers analyzed the biomechanics of walking and examined ultrasound imaging studies that showed that the calf muscle not only exerts energy when pushing a person forward, but also when performing a clutch-like action to hold the Achilles tendon taut, meaning tight. So that means that studies show that the calf muscles are primarily producing force isometrically without doing any work during the stance phase of walking, but still using substantial metabolic energy. So if we can factor out that metabolic energy as much as possible, then we may have solved the problem of walking and how extremely difficult it is to walk. Well, by offloading some of the clutching muscle forces from the calf to the passive elastic device, the researchers were able to reduce the overall metabolic rate of walking. This is accomplished through the use of a mechanical clutch that produces force without consuming any energy. The clutch engages a spring in a parallel with the Achilles tendon when the foot is on the ground to offload force from the calf, and then disengages when the foot is in the air so as to avoid interfering with toe clearance. So it's actually a series of pulleys, cables, and springs, which allows you to walk without exerting much energy. Now, this is great for me because I'm extremely lazy and I don't really like walking that much anyway. So exerting as little force as possible in walking is great news for me. So if you're like me and you're extremely lazy, you'll definitely want to get this device. Or maybe you have problems walking. You don't have to be lazy. You could also have problems with walking, like a legitimate medical problem, and that'd be cool too to use. So the DEA agents who were investigating Silk Road have been let go finally. And it's also been revealed, according to new papers which have come out, that one of them sent weird messages to the Mt. Gox CEO. Mt. Gox was the big Bitcoin exchange which collapsed a few months ago. So Sean Bridges and Carl Force, respectively, were computer forensics experts, and they led undercover agents in charge of communicating with Dread Pirate Roberts, who's the operator of the Silk Road site. And this week, Mark Karpelès said that he released a few bizarre messages that he exchanged in April and May with Force over LinkedIn. So the story just gets stranger and stranger with Force and the other guy, Sean Bridges and Carl Force, the two disgraced Secret Service and DEA agents who are fortunately no longer on the job. And the case just gets stranger and stranger. They also allegedly stole a lot of Bitcoin. So we don't know what's going on in terms of details. It's just bizarre. The whole case is just bizarre. Well, this is Digital Drive. I'm your host, Russell. The show we talk about technology and more. Nuganomics.com is coming up in just a few seconds right here on Hot News Talk Radio. That's AM 1240, AM 1190, and AM 910. Don't forget to go to the website, hotnewstalkradio.com. Get the TuneIn app and search for Hot News Talk Radio, and you'll be able to listen to us on your smartphone, be it a Windows phone, a BlackBerry, heaven help you, an iPhone, or an Android phone. You can listen to us on the web on your smartphone that way. This is Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
You do not have to be living with constant pain. You need to make the choice today to enjoy a revitalized body. You deserve to live a better pain-free life. And Dr. Ross can help. At Ross Chiropractic, failure is not an option. For over 40 years, Dr. Ross, a graduate of the prestigious Palmer College of Chiropractic, prided himself in helping and healing. The Ross method of chiropractic care is unique in developing a treatment designed just for you. And Ross Chiropractic makes this promise to you. If he believes that he can't help relieve your pain, he will guide you to another health practitioner to assist you. Feel better now. You owe it to yourself. You really do. Call Dr. Ross now at 954-9591. That's 954-9591. And visit Dr. Ross at 7405 Shallowford Road, Suite 320. Ross Chiropractic, helping your body heal itself. Because when your spine's in line, you will feel fine. Call 954-9591. That's 954-9591 for Ross Chiropractic.
Every Tuesday at 11 a.m. on Hot News Talk Radio, join Real Estate U for an hour of information, guests, and new ideas about the dynamic Chattanooga real estate investment market. Real Estate U every Tuesday at 11 a.m. here on Hot News Talk Radio.
Have you ever thought about starting your own business? Trying to figure out which one may be right for you is a very daunting task. My name is Bruce Krebs with the Entrepreneur Source, and I can help you look at franchises or business opportunities that are a right fit for you and the economy that we live in and that are right for the greater Chattanooga area, both demographically and competitively. If you would just like to learn more about the opportunities that may be right for you, please call me for a free assessment. My phone number is 423-875-5621. 423-875-5621.
Pure, honest, fair, and respect. Just some words that come to mind when you think about how you want to be treated. And that's how you're treated at Rivermont Pure. Rivermont Pure in Rivermont, Chattanooga. Serving your vehicle needs for over 30 years.
Now that's a long time.
Owner-operators Charlie and Tommy always put your needs first. Yeah, go ahead. Get an estimate from one of those big guy impersonal car repair chains.
No way.
Then bring it to Tommy and Charlie at Rivermont Pure. Chances are they'll beat their price and get your vehicle back on the road faster than you can say,
our customers come first. Hi, this is Charlie.
And I'm Tommy, owners of Rivermont Pure. We're here to serve you.
Rivermont Pure, the auto repair guys. Featuring ethanol-free fuel. Located across from Rivermont Elementary on Hickson Pike. Rivermont, Chattanooga. Rivermont Pure.
Rivermont Pure, that's where I've always gone to get my car serviced. My husband and I trust Charlie and Tommy. They always treat us right and give us a fair price. And they get the job done right the first time. Thank you, Rivermont Pure.
Call 485-3375. That's 485-3375.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk Radio, 910, 1190, and 1240 a.m.
They say you can always tell a Texan, you just can't tell them much. But you can try. Cowboy Up with Texas on Monday through Friday, 6 to 7 Eastern, and he comments on the day's events. So, agree or disagree, call in and tell a Texan.
Do you feel better outside your home or business than in? Indoor air quality is important. Mildew, mold, smoke, water, and rodent damage are prime causes of poor indoor air quality. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals, better known as Duct Busters, cleans HVAC systems using 127 definable Duct Busters steps. Let Mark Thompson address the indoor air quality at your business to help reduce employee illnesses. Prevent fires by cleaning your dryer vents. Mark and his parents, Dick and Joan Thompson, have been building our local economy and helping local people with HVAC systems 16 years. Ducts, Indoor Air Professionals. Call 876-9907. 876-9907. Ducts. Call now.
If the South would have won, we'd have had it made. I'd probably run for president of the southern states. The day Elvis passed away would be our national holiday. If the South would have won, we'd have had it made.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk 1240.
minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk.
WSDQ Dunlap, WEPG South Pittsburgh, WSDT Saudi Daisy, Chattanooga.
CBS News, I'm Peter King. New job numbers for March were expected to be well above the 200,000 mark, but instead, the Commerce Department says only 126,000 were added to the economy. A shock, says CBS News business analyst Jill Schlesinger.
Wow, this is a disappointing read. We were expecting 250,000, 126, really rough. Now, it is 12 straight months of job gains above 200,000, so we didn't get to 13. That would have been the best stretch since 1994 to 95.
The unemployment rate was unchanged at 5.5%. The Labor Department says first-time unemployment claims were near a 15-year low. Federal agents say they've arrested a woman in Philadelphia. She was preparing to join Islamic insurgents in Syria. CBS's Paula Reed.
A Philadelphia woman has been arrested for attempting to travel abroad to support the Islamic State. According to court documents, 30-year-old Keona Thomas, a U.S. citizen living in Philadelphia, has been inspired by ISIS since at least 2013. She used social media to express her desire to travel abroad and become a martyr, but she was arrested when she arranged to travel to Syria.
Iran's president promises to stand by commitments made in the new nuclear deal with the U.S.-led negotiating team. This is Hassan Rouhani through an interpreter.
We have taken steps for the lifting of sanctions and at the same time into a constructive interaction with the world. And this is of great significance for us.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu doesn't believe him.
The cabinet is united in strongly opposing the proposed deal. This deal would pose a grave danger to the region and to the world, and would threaten the very survival of the state of Israel.
The rain keeps on coming in Louisville, Kentucky, with water rescues in areas normally far from water.
Since 1 o'clock this morning, there have been 163 water rescues, and 15 to 20 are pending as of right now.
Mayor Greg Fisher is asking people not to try to drive around barricades or through standing water with more bad weather coming. Shoes for the homeless, part of a Good Friday observance in Los Angeles. Here's KNX reporter Pete Demetrio.
3,500 people will be fed, get their feet washed, and evaluated by healthcare specialists at this Good Friday event. James Appleby, brand director for Etnies Shoes, says that 2,000 shoes the homeless will be getting in sizes 5 to 14 are ones proven to be able to take a beating.
Skateboard shoes are built to take the biggest beating that could possibly happen from skateboarders, whether it be through the grip tape, through the high impact of jumping down stairs, rails.
When you combine the foot washing and care the homeless get today with a new pair of tough yet comfortable shoes, it makes the life of a person on the street just a little easier. Pete Demetrio, CBS News, Los Angeles.
On the eve of the Major League Baseball season, an arbitrator has ruled that Angels outfielder Josh Hamilton did not violate his substance abuse treatment program and should not be disciplined. The Associated Press reports Hamilton self-reported a violation earlier this year. This is CBS News.
You're wearing top-of-the-line boots to hike the scenic Rockies, but you're still wearing your indoor eyeglasses in the glare of the sun?
What's that, Mom? What? Where?
Next time, experience Xperio UV, superior polarized sun lenses, and experience the difference.
Look, Katie, an eagle.
They eliminate 100% of blinding reflective glare and offer ESPF 50+, the maximum UV protection available. Ask your eye care professional about Xperio UV, superior polarized sun lenses in your prescription for the best vision under the sun.
I'm Jay Farner with some great news on how you could save an average of $3,000 per year on your mortgage. Call Quicken Loans now at 800-QUICKEN to see if you qualify for the government's Home Affordable Refinance Program, or HARP. The HARP guidelines have changed. There's less paperwork and often no appraisal required. Call 800-QUICKEN. That's 800-QUICKEN, or visit QuickenLoans.com.
Important terms and conditions apply. Calls for cost information. Equal housing lender. Licensed all 50 states. And NMLS number 3030.
Former New England Patriots player Aaron Hernandez is back in court as the judge hears arguments regarding her jury instructions. Prosecution has rested its case after 131 witnesses. The defense is expected to present its witnesses and rest Monday. Deliberations to follow. Hernandez has pled not guilty to a 2013 murder. There's backlash from yesterday's announcement that McDonald's plans to raise its minimum starting salaries at company-owned restaurants. CBS News correspondent Barry Bagnotto has more.
Warning that it's just a preview of a massive April 15th demonstration. McDonald's employees in about a dozen cities protested a plan to pay workers at corporate-owned restaurants at least $1 an hour more than the local minimum wage. Franchises aren't included.
Franchise is still a McDonald's.
Oscar Gomez, a worker in Phoenix.
I have to sell my own personal items just so I can have enough money to pay for electricity or have enough money to get my mother for groceries.
About 90% of McDonald's restaurants are franchises.
That's Barry Bagnotto, and I'm Peter King, CBS News.
Here comes Dale Earnhardt Jr. He's got third. He's going for second.
NASCAR, Laura Ingram, Dennis Miller, David Toulis, Coast to Coast AM, and CBS Radio News. Chattanooga's news, talk, and sports leader.
Hot News Talk Radio, 910, 1190, and 1240 AM. Live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, it's Nooganomics with David Toulis.